And this is where Dr. Mark Eckel and Harold H.B. Bell meet every Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Welcome in. You're listening to Warp and Woof Radio on the Cool Groove site at the RadioNext.tv studio. Dr. Mark, how are you, my friend?
Doing really good. Lots of work this week, doing all kinds of things. We are going to be hearing from two special people today. We're going to be hearing from Adrian Mickens, who's going to be talking about his communication platform here in Indianapolis and the wonderful work that he's doing connecting folks just like we are, only in different fashion, different way, different venues. But first, in our first hour, we're going to do some little bit of recorded interaction with Gerson Cardona down in Houston, Texas. He's going to tell us first-hand accounts of what's been going on down there and the kinds of work that folks are doing to make sure that the cleanup after Harvey gets done. Gerson is one of those people that I've known for a number of years, worked with for a number of years. He is a special, special person along with his lovely wife, Elsa. We're grateful to have them on the program this morning. Looking forward to that dialogue.
Well, that's awesome, man. And we know that was a horrific storm that the people in Houston and Louisiana had to go through. And, you can watch all the news you want, but until you actually are dealing with it firsthand and can hear some of the real accounts from the people who had to deal with it, that's what we're talking about. Information
exactly.
is what's important today. Talk about what's happening with Comenius.
Yeah, so Comenius Institute, the bridge between high school and college for Christian young people going to a public university setting. And we do all different kinds of things. We meet with students as well as faculty, having discussions about the kinds of things that are being taught and are being learned. We're also doing all kinds of writing constantly. And you'll hear me on a regular basis doing radio interviews on places like Moody Radio. I just did one this morning about how in the world do we dialogue even though we may disagree. We actually bring some of those kinds of issues up into this particular platform, but certainly that's something that I'm doing on a regular basis. Not to mention the fact that we have a website, ComeniusInstitute.com. You can go there, find all kinds of connections to the kinds of radio and video that we're doing, all the writing that I'm doing, or to my personal website, warpandwoof.org. That's warpandwoof.org. And you can find over 600 essays, book reviews, movie reviews, articles that I've written, videos, podcasts, sermons, all kinds of things there that are available to anybody for free use, and we're glad to be able to help in this way. I think it's a very valuable benefit to the community of Indianapolis, HB.
You're a busy man there, Dr. Eckel. Well, you know what we do each and every week. We give you a little musical interludes in between the conversation that we're going to have today, and communication is so important, and we talk about this all the time, and with this new medium that's available.
Yes.
There are so many different ways and so many different fractions of communication being set out here in different veins, and need to talk about all that, and that's going to be a very interesting topic when Adrian gets in here. So we're going to get into a little music, and when we come back, we're going to get right into it. We're going to find out what's happening down with some of the people in Houston, and then we're going to talk about communication today on Warp and Woof Radio on the Cool Groove site. RadioNext.tv, Warp and Woof Radio on the Cool Groove site. Dr. Mark Eckel, Harold H.B. Bell, and welcome in every Wednesday, man. This is a good part of my week, man. My brother's in the studio with me. Kind of any pressures and any drama you might have experienced kind of just, goes into the basement at least for these next 2 hours, man. So how you been, brother?
Oh, doing really good. It's always good to be with you, too. And let's give a little bit of a backward look on Saturday. That was a fantastic Art in the Park mental health awareness situation.
Desired accomplished, is sweet to the soul. And after, looking back on it, when you could count your blessings so many ways because resources were limited in this quest. The seed that was planted, I'd never done anything like this before, trying to concentrate on an area that I just have been compelled and been driven now to make some awareness happen. Because, basically what happens is I get to sit in this studio 6 days a week and hear so many different subject matters, and all of them lead to some type of mental health awareness issue that people need to know about and hear about in their situation, because when you're talking about community all the time, and there are so many things that are ailing our community that if we don't give information on how to be aware at least
Yeah, exactly.
On what's in your backyard, so to speak. That smell and I heard,
That's right.
that stench.
That's right.
Really, man.
That's
That. So we have to get rid of it. But thank you so much for your support, and thanks for all the people who are out there listening who contributed. And as I mentioned, this is going to be a movement. This isn't a one-time event, so now we're planning on how we're going to bring on a weekly basis some awareness to all those areas of mental health that we were addressing on Saturday.
That's great, man. It was great. Robin and I had a great time down there.
Absolutely. Nice little jazz out there, too.
Oh, my word. George Middleton. George Middleton, we're going to bring him in studio here one of these days, too. It was great to hear from him and his book on racism. I can't wait to have a conversation with him about that.
Oh, he's like a young Malcolm X. I'm just kidding. That's my guy. But the beautiful thing about this and what we're talking about today lies right in hand with the subject matter later on today as far as communication and even the communication efforts that I witnessed watching Hurricane Harvey, people being able to immediately get help because of the tools of today, the social media tools and the internet radios and all those things of today. It was
exactly.
Man, it saved a lot of people's lives.
It
so
did.
It's interesting just watching as we move forward. So yes, sir.
Well, we are here in studio with a recording from Gerson Cardona, who's down in Houston himself, and he himself and his wife and his church, and you'll be hearing some of what he has to say about Harvey and the cleanup now after the devastation in Houston and other places like Louisiana. But Gerson and his wife and his family are down in Houston, and we're going to do a couple of minutes slots here to hear what Gerson has to say about the general situation, and then HB and I will be back on after each couple of minutes to talk about the specifics of what we just heard.
Good morning, Dr. Echo. This is Gerson Cardona, Chaplain Cardona from Houston, Texas. I am recording this video, and I want to say hi to everyone there in Indianapolis. Thank you for giving us this time and this opportunity to share what's happening here in the area of Houston. Harvey hit hard. It was long days of waiting, rain day and night, and there were moments that we thought we would have to evacuate also, but just by the grace of God, he had mercy, and he allowed us to stay dry. So we're blessed to have been able to stay dry so we can help other people. I've been able to see how officials and first responders are helping and working and doing their job. And let me tell you, I'm so blessed to have that. First responders, one of them lost his life, several of them, I believe. And it's just been amazing, because that's what we do. We go into the fire when there is a need. So it's the city. It's working together to try to do the best they can to lead the city. Really don't know how the decision making gets done there, but I'm pretty sure they try their best to do what they can to make the best decisions.
I want to just mention here, after listening to a couple of minutes from Gerson, that what really fascinates me about his first comments right out of the box have to do with not just the first responders, but also the city government. And I think that's really powerful when we give credit and appreciation to politicians and institutions. Sometimes we get all upset about them, but we need to give them some love when that comes up.
It's interesting when I listen, in the acts of when we're in harm's way and when peril is on the step. We want our government.
Exactly.
But then get out of my way, just in the everyday things that you think we can figure out. And that's a dynamic I think that as a people and as a country we need to figure out you can't have everything when you want it, and you can't discount everything when you don't.
That's right.
And these are lessons that I think we need to learn from times like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's an important idea here about institutions. I've written an essay on my website, warpandwoof.org. You can go there, type in the search line the word institutions, and see what I have to say about that. I think they're really powerful and important. And as I suggested, sometimes we give them a real hard time, of course, until we need them. So listen to Harrison again now as he begins to talk about the issue of community specifically.
So that's good right there. We're blessed. But let me tell you something. The community was the most impactful one for me. When they call out for people to come in, they bring their boats and then their trucks and anything they had to save people. Everyone responded. Everyone came and took their boats out. Don't matter how nice, how big, how fancy the boat would be. They came and they used it. They saved people. They rescued people. So the community, the people, the neighbors, they came together and they responded. Churches are amazing. I have not seen how churches are together here. I was thinking it's a big church. It's a big city. I don't know if churches are really working in one mind, in one accord, but
this is an important idea as well. You know, as Harrison is explaining to us what's going on down there with individuals. First, he talks about the community, and so he talks about how everybody just kind of gets together and pushes. In fact, Adrian Mickens, who's going to be here later on, he has a network called Harambe, which is an African term which means let's all get together and push. Don't you think that's an important idea?
You know, it's just so funny when I'm listening to, not funny, because, enlightening. It's refreshing because everything that we talk about, number one, the tagline, all community, all the time, will overcome anything. And everything that you talking about, do good,
That's
do
right.
good. Everything that we talk about, and hopefully talk about on this network, is representative of what he is going through in I guess, one of the most difficult times. And to hear him calmly be able to bring the cream to the top.
There you go.
So to speak, of what we really are as a people if we get rid of it. Like I say, get out of our way from all these...
all the stuff that divides us all the time. I got
other terminology. I told you, I'm watching my tongue.
Yeah.
But seriously, man, and this is the spirit of humanity, and this is what I'm talking about.
That's right. Yeah. So let's listen to one more 2-minute segment here from Harrison, and then we'll take a musical break, maybe have a little chat about what he has to say. But a few more words here on the local churches.
Them, because I wanted to make sure that when an event like this happened, I had friends around me and we can communicate, we can contact one another. So I think that's the blessing of being united and being in relationship, no matter what denomination you are. So I have been able to see the unity here on that matter. Has it been organized? Maybe not. Maybe it's been a organized chaos, like my pastor says, Pastor Steve Regal from Grace, the Woodlands. But it has been a blessing to be able to see how we've been able to get together. I'm going to talk a little bit about my church, Grace, the Woodlands. We were planning an event on September the 30th. We were going to do the big give. Pastor Josh, who is the administrative pastor, his wife, they wanted to do this event, Brooke Pierce. And they've been planning this event for 4 or 5 months, maybe more than that. And we've been collecting clothes and all kinds of stuff. And we had a storage full of stuff, and we were just building that and filling that. I don't know, almost 200 boxes. I don't know how many boxes we had, but we had a lot of stuff. So when Harvey came, we, in a sense, were ready with clothes and several other items. And God knew what was coming, and He was preparing us. Many churches around here got flooded, and even our South Campus, South Houston, they got flooded, so they were not able to be a relief center. And the water at our church, if you look at on Facebook.
Hersan is talking here about his local church specifically and the kinds of events that they were able to pull together, but only because they were prepared. Reminds me of our friend Neil Cox, for instance, who does a great work here in Indianapolis, getting folks ready for kinds of disasters that we might face in the future, making sure that all the churches work together. And don't forget what Hersan is talking about here, that early on in his comments, and the first couple of seconds here of the second segment, he was talking about it. Hey, it doesn't matter where you come from, what your denomination is. What really matters, HB, is we all get together and push.
And hurricanes do not discriminate.
Isn't that the truth?
Tragedies do not discriminate. And I think that's the true blessing sometimes. I think God brings this element and trust me, I'm not saying, we take light of those who have to perish in those storms, but
yes,
when it brings to surface some of the things that we need to really go back to and understand about being humane to one another, loving one another, stripping ourselves, as I always say, of ourselves, for the betterment of the whole. This is what happens. But how do we maintain that spirit of love and brotherhood without it being a tragedy or without it being something that's somebody in peril? So
it sounds like every week, maybe HB, we should have a radio show that kind of talks about this. What do you think about that?
I think we should. We'll come back and tell them all about that when we come back. You're listening to Warp and Woof Radio on the Cool Groove site at Radio Day. I had to go a little social conscious on the music choices there, because God is love, and what a difference you can make in this world. Warp and Woof Radio on the Cool Groove site. Dr. Mark Echo, Harold H.B. Bell, Comenius Institute. You was talking about that before we went on break. Come on, let's plug it up one more time.
Yeah, one more time. Comenius. John Amos Comenius, the famous Moravian pastor from the turn of the 17th century, who actually gave us the encyclopedia, something called Pan Sophie. A wonderful man whose educational background and expertise certainly helped launch what we now know as the modern educational movement. In fact, if you're in the public school system, you today still consider John Amos Comenius as the father of modern education. And we are here as an educational organization, the Comenius Institute, helping young people make the bridge between high school and college, going into a public university setting sometimes for the very first time, and helping them know how to navigate those waters, what kind of questions to ask, and then, of course, how to speak up and sometimes not speak up in situations and settings that they need to know about. So that's what we do every week, and we're doing this particular week a real connection now to our brothers and sisters down in Houston, Texas, and we want to make sure that we continue that conversation with Hersan. In this next segment, Hersan's going to talk about the interconnectivity in the church, specifically his local church, and the kinds of work that they could do, but then listen closely as he begins to segue into his own personal life and what this means for him.
You'll be able to see how the water, it was almost getting in. It was knocking on the doors to get in. But the Lord preserved the church for a reason. And we've been able to serve many families. Every day, thousands of, at least 1,500 people come every day. Every day come to the church to get food, to get clothes. And people are coming from everywhere to our church with semis full of clothes, food, diapers, toiletries, you name it. They've been sending everything here. And we've been able to send out to the community at least 70 trucks full loaded with water, with all kinds of things that they need. So that has been a blessing for us to be able to see that and be part of that, be part of a ministry, be part of a church that God spared for a reason, for such a time like this. My wife and I, we were hesitating and we were debating this all year. We just moved to Houston last summer, June the 8th. And we were asking ourselves many times, because one of the biggest struggles that we had here was finances. We couldn't build our business. I have a painting and remodeling business, and it was tough for me to build it without relationships. And we almost went back several times, praying and asking God, why do you have us here? I was a police officer in Indianapolis. I was a chaplain in Indianapolis. I was a professor at Crossroads Bible College. I was a associate pastor and youth pastor, and I'm like, Lord, I've done all this, and I can't find a job here in Houston. What's going on? And even like that, but the Lord has been providing for us for all of our needs. And many times we almost packed and go back. But times like this, like Harvey, like a place with, we were talking with my wife the other day, and she says, this is why we were supposed to be here.
That is a powerful testimony from Gerson and from Elsa down in Houston, Texas. They're really doing the work of helping the devastation down there. Just a couple of comments. 70 truckloads. This was these, at least the estimates, the numbers coming in from yesterday. 70 truckloads out to different locations and places where people need the basic necessities of life, including bottled water. Then hear what he had to say concerning that famous line out of the book of Esther, perhaps we are here for this very time, for such a time as this. The very famous line out of the book of Esther in Scripture. And Gerson is talking about something very personal here, something that's very difficult. When you're in a setting and in a situation where you really don't know why you're doing what you're doing, HB just acquainted me with a word that I think I'm going to create an essay out of, and that's the word curator. And he said, sometimes we may not see the results of the things that we do, but HB, you certainly have set up not just this radio show and the community connections that you have, but you can identify with where Gerson's coming from.
Absolutely, because sometimes you think your work is going in vain, and you need affirmation. And most times, that's the fuel to keep you moving towards.
That's right.
The unseen. And we play around and talk about faith, and we always want to talk God. And I just watch and listen to people when they always talk about God's doing something, and it's the only time that they talk about God is doing something when it is a favorable,
isn't that the truth? There it
type
is.
of event. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, sometimes when you're getting sharpened to know that you're getting ready to be this instrument, to be at another level, and you're going through some strife and going through a little pain, and you still wake up every day, and then you can look back and say, this stretch I've been going through, this hell I think I'm going through, has been too long for the normal person, to still thrive and flourish and have momentum and movement. Be thankful for that ache and that pain and that stress that might seem to be unbearable, because it's just making you tougher for the work. So we can't always just get caught up on the pleasures to act like that's when God is doing his thing.
Isn't that the truth?
I just mentioned, God's doing his thing with this new hurricane coming.
Yeah.
I don't know what the results are, but he's doing his thing.
Yeah.
He did his thing in Houston because people now are rebounding and coming back from what seemed like just flat out hell for 4 or 5 days. But people came together. People started seeing the spirit of humanity. People, like we mentioned, church walls came down.
That's right.
And so I just think we have to be just thanking God every day for every breath, for everything that we have to deal with, and still get another chance to breathe this thing tomorrow.
Isn't that the truth? Those are great words, HB. One of the things that aggravates me no end is when I hear people use the phrase that God is good, and they only use the phrase God is good, as H.B. Wells says, when favorable things are happening to them. Here we have the devastation in Houston. We're going to continue now with Gerson's comments about the Houston devastation and some more personal connections for churches and for communities and the things that are happening on the ground in Houston, Texas.
And we've been able to send out to the community at least 70 trucks full loaded with water, with all kinds of things that they need. So that has been a blessing for us to be able to see that and be part of that, be part of a ministry, be part of a church that God spared for a reason, for such a time like this. My wife and I, we were hesitating, and we were debating this whole year. We just moved to Houston.
I need to fast forward here to the next segment and hear again what Hersan's talking about.
Because the waters didn't let us out for several days. So since last Wednesday the church opened, we've been there since 7 in the morning until 9, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock every day, long hours, working alongside our pastors, Pastor Steve Riggle, and Josh Pierce, Pastor Josh Pierce, Pastor John, Pastor Juan Carlos, Pastor Isaac, a lot of leaders in our church, and the blessing is that they empower us to go do the work. And I've been leading the outside crews with another brother, Brother Fidel Gonzalez. We've been leading the crews outside, demolishing houses, tearing out all the drywall that is wet, and all the carpet and all the furniture. And we have all the teenagers, youth volunteering here and there, right and left. And my wife is leading the inside distribution center, and as people come in and give them, she's lining all that up, and we're just so blessed to be able to serve, even though it's tiring. Let me tell you, it's tiring being on your feet for those long hours, and not just standing, but walking, running, loading and unloading waters and moving stuff. It's been tiring, but it's been rewarding. It's been a blessing seeing people crying with testimonies and telling you thank you, and telling you that you came to the right time to their place. It's been amazing.
This is a great testimony, I think, of somebody who is not afraid of work. Obviously, when Hersan lived here, I remember our earliest times together back in 2009 and 10 when we first met. He was a guy who had owned a $250,000 business. He's certainly the go-to guy when you want to make sure that anything gets done in your organization. Elsa, his wife, is a tremendous administrator. So both of them doing this together is really powerful to hear. Let's listen to one more 1-minute segment here from what they have to say.
So we are blessed. Unfortunately, this week, many of us go back to work because we have to feed our families. So the next step in our church is we're evaluating what are the needs and how can we serve. But the biggest thing is we're going to have to pay some people so they can oversee stuff, so they can continue doing this. And my family and I, we're committed to after work and weekends to continue serving, and we're going to do that. And this is not just days, this is weeks, months, perhaps a year or so. So we're excited. A lot of things are happening. God is good, and we're alive. We have the air that we breathe, and we're able to serve others. When we get to heaven, we'll rest. But one more little study, a testimony. My children.
This comment that Hersan makes about we get to rest when we go to heaven, I have to chuckle about that, knowing him like I do, man. He's just so pure in his approach to these things. I'm so grateful for this. But notice, HB, what he said about church leaders and how they're stepping up down there. I mean, isn't this what this should be all about? Church leaders leading the way.
And we talk about this all the time, and I just had a very, very interesting chat. You met Pastor Joy Thornton last week at Greater St. Mark Church, and we were talking about that same thing. And the misnomer sometimes is that all these preachers and churches are just out here, being trifling and doing nothing when, exact opposite. Most of these churches and preachers are doing some great things. And unfortunately, just much like we see on the news, and I tell you this all the time, the perception of young African-American men.
Yes.
If you watch the news versus some of these young people that you've met around me and through some of these other organizations, and just watch these great gifts that are spawning, we have to be careful sometimes.
That's right.
Of categorizing a whole group as being jacked up, because most of these churches and these preachers have great intentions and are doing great works in their community. So I think what we need to do is create a force where, much like what we're doing right now, we bring people of this community together to be able to outweigh negative that's
That's
coming
right.
out to the public, and the opinion will be, okay, let me join this movement of doing good, because you really don't have to do a bunch.
Yeah, that's right.
The cog is moving.
Yeah, if you're going to throw shade, then you're not helping anybody.
Yeah.
But if you're going to actually light something up and set it on fire and make sure that folks get warm and fed and doing good in the community, that's where it's at.
And back to that word curator. Everybody doesn't have to be a curator. Some can be a decorator.
Ooh.
Some can be a facilitator.
Oh.
You know, really, man. I mean, some can be the educator. Everybody doesn't have to come up with the idea and be a visionary. I mean, just what can you do with your gift to come along and say, I can add to this with this thing that I do. And if we get there, man, heaven on earth. We about there. We halfway there.
Isn't that the truth, man? This is a great conversation. We're going to hear one more segment from Harrison after we take a musical break. You're listening to Warp and Woof Radio. We come to you every Wednesday from 10 until noon. In the next hour, we're going to be hearing from Adrian Mickens about communication. Can't wait for
I
that.
have to get deep with my musical preference, man. And check this song out.
All right.
People, just listen to what I'm talking about.
Oh, man, I don't know if I can even come in properly after that song. What would you do?
Don Cornelius to come in on that one, man.
This is so good. You know, this is exactly what Harrison's talking about. What would you do? And he's actually doing it. He's on the ground doing it, and this is why we brought this forward. We thought this was going to be a good first segment here, HB.
Absolutely, man, and it's absolutely wonderful. And just the development of, Comenius Institute, man, watching how the show, some of the things that we've talked about have come off stride of what we had set out to do, the foundation of the show, which was, very measured. And this gives us a chance to go into different little, channels and pathways and thought.
That's right.
It's a beautiful thing, But no, what he's talking about is real. And when you and I think when you do your passion, though, you're really not working. So those 16-hour days, he's up on his feet and he's doing, but man, he is doing exactly what God called him to do.
What he's supposed to do.
So he's not really, quote unquote, working per se as normal people get up and go to their job. He's not doing a job.
Yeah, right.
Let's put it like that. He's working.
Yeah.
He's not doing a job, and when you don't do a job, there's something mentally refreshing about it.
Isn't that the truth?
Stamina.
Yeah.
Vocation. From nowhere.
Vocation is ministry, so whatever it is that you've been given a passion to do, follow that song by Will Downing. What would you do? What are you going to do with what you've got? I think that's really crucial and huge. Let's listen to one more segment here from Harrison as he finishes up telling us about what's going on down in Houston.
We're able to serve others. When we get to heaven, we'll rest. But one more little study, a testimony. My children, Neftali and Merari, have been a blessing. They've been there every day, long hours, and even Neftali and Merari, they want to play sports, but the coach told Nefi, if you play, you got to be here and practice. If not, you can't play. You got to get out of the team. So he chose to come to the church every day after school rather than playing the sport that he loves. And that for me, it's a testimony. I'm blessed. I'm thankful because he says that I don't want to be practicing. I want to be serving the people. I want to be serving. I want to be doing. I want to be there with the people. I can't practice right now. I can't focus. I got to help people.
Let's just pause there, HB. I mean, I'm going, this little boy who is a soccer player is giving that up to go help people, HB.
Well, I think, though, Mark, Scripture, I always go back to that big book we read or should be reading, and it, teach them as a child, and that's the direction that they go. And it's, no pressure, but, this is what he's watching.
Yeah, that's right.
This is what he's become.
He's seeing his dad do it.
His dad doing it, so it's a natural transition for, and I think, like I say, we want our children to do right, then do right. Nothing more, nothing less. Do right, and your children will watch you, and then now you got somebody doing right.
Exactly. This is powerful stuff. Let's listen to another segment from Harrison.
And I am just so proud and so blessed to see that and to hear that. Dr. Echo, I know it's been a long time since I see you, but I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share this. Hey, if people ask, how can we give? How can we donate? Grace the Woodlands Relief Center. We are a relief center. We just opened up 2 or 3 more relief center here in Houston, right in the city of the heart, where the more water and more people got flooded. And all we do is we receive it here and we send it to their places, and then they send it to their people, and those are open to all the communities. Financially, you can give online financially. Perhaps we can staff a person that he can oversee and redoing and putting these houses together. There are many people that they live in houses that never flooded before, so they did not need flood insurance, and they're not covered. So they have to fix their homes with any money, whatever it comes, and they have to do it themselves. We've been helping elderly people, elderly couples, widows. We've been helping single moms, you name it. Everyone that has sent requests for them to help. We are blessed to do that, but we need finances, we need supplies, we need tools. So thank you very much. God bless you guys. Follow us on Facebook. We got pictures, we got videos, we got stories, we got testimonies there of what's happening here in Houston. Love my Indy family. Take care. God bless you guys. Thank you, Dr. Echo, and thank you everyone from the radio station for this opportunity. Bye.
What a great word we heard from Harrison this morning, and he mentioned that you can certainly follow them on Facebook. That would be a great way to go about hearing some more of the daily struggles that they have. But honestly, what we're hearing here from Harrison and from Elsa and those who are engaged in the community down there is that they always, like every time when these kinds of situations come up, these disasters and devastations, they need help from the rest of the country. And HB, what I am just amazed at is we have our differences in this nation. We're divided about so many different issues. But I'll tell you what, HB, when folks are in trouble, other folks line up, and it's an amazing country to live in.
He saved a wretch like me.
There it is.
I mean, basically, man. I mean, the human spirit and the good of people seems to always surface, and sadly, and I keep saying sadly, we wait until it's catastrophic or somebody's in harm's way before we can raise that spirit up, instead of when you're driving down the street and seeing some little old lady needing help because her stuff fell off her cart.
Yep.
Yep. And you're too busy to do it. Mm-hmm. But, we find ways to raise the human element. I just think that we need to concentrate on situations like this a little more. When this beautiful fall type day that we have out here right now today, and it seems like no stress and no strain, what can you go do for somebody?
Isn't that the truth? And we're just so pleased, Harrison and Elsa. I know that you and others down in Houston have been listening during this hour. We want to thank you so much for once again demonstrating what it looks like to be a Christian, to help others. We're grateful for that. We're praying for you and helping you as best we can. And in this medium, what we do best is communicate. And so we're constantly telling people about what's news, what's happening, and what needs to be done. HB, I'm so glad to be on this platform with you.
And thank you for bringing that human element to what we can do. Like I say, through your storm, and here's what's amazing. Through their peril.
Yep.
They're helping folks.
That's right.
And that's amazing. So going to take a break. Adrian will be in. And when we come back, we're going to find out a little bit more about this communication thing, because you've just heard from Houston the real deal of what's going on down there.
And we are back. RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site. This is Warp and Woof Radio. We come to you every Wednesday from 10 until noon. We've been doing this for 2 years now, and we're having a great time introducing to folks around Indianapolis all different kinds of individuals and groups and facilities and practices and venues that are doing good in the Indianapolis community. Our tagline is based on Titus chapter 3, do good, do good, do good, and we're always looking for Christians in the Indianapolis community who are doing just that. And today we are honored to have in our presence in studio today, Adrian Mickens. Adrian, thank you so much for spending some time to be with us here today.
No problem at all. No problem at all.
We're grateful, knowing, of course, that you all just got married here just recently. You know, that's a wonderful thing.
Yep, August 26th.
Congratulations again. This is marvelous stuff. Mm-hmm. Oh, we got a little get a little applause going on over there. That was good. Yeah, so we're really grateful that you're here today. We wanted to talk about communication. We spent our first hour actually having an interview with some folks down in Houston who are addressing the devastation of Harvey, and some great Christian folks down there doing good in Houston. But right now, we want to talk with you about the communication issues here in Indianapolis, the kinds of work that you're doing. So let's kind of set it up. Give us some background to yourself, your family, and specifically maybe what your work is all about.
All right. Well, again, my name is Adrian Mickens. My company, when I very first started, was called Soul Hits Entertainment back in 2007. As years progressed and we evolved within the technology area, we have since changed the name to Soul Hits Communications. Over the about past 5 to 7 years, we've been working with a lot of charter schools here within the city, providing them with what we call the new revolutionaries of social media marketing, and various ranges of mobile applications, websites, different things like that of that such.
So you're an independent contractor then?
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, that's great. And tell us a little bit about this work that you're doing in charter schools. What is it that about this educational venue? Why are folks so needful of what you have to give them?
Well, I think it's coming to a point where we're having a bridging gap of generation and technology.
Yes.
And what I mean by generation and technology, I mean the access and resources and knowledge of how to use technology. In order for somebody to learn it, somebody has to already know. So if we have a generation who refuses to learn it or is scared to learn it, you can't teach it to the next generation, which makes them obsolete and makes them uninformed about information about technology too as well.
So quite frankly, and I just kind of give you a plug here for this, I've got my own tech guy that helps us, at Comenius Institute, and he takes care of all the behind-the-scenes stuff, and I get an email about something's not working from Just Host or whoever, I just forward it on to him. So I'm really grateful for guys like you who actually know what's going on. Yeah. What is it about your knowledge base that's so different from, let's say, folks who have, folks my age? I'm 60, maybe folks in their 40s and 50s. What is it that you bring to the table that the rest of us just can't get a hold of?
Well, I actually just turned 30 this month, August. And between that 10, 20-year gap, the only thing I would say is just the basis of just taking the time just to learn it, It's not anything difficult, but it can be very tedious. And I think sometimes people's patience level isn't as long to retain or learn information like that, because if it doesn't work and you don't see it work, like if a computer shuts you out, it'll shut you out in a million different ways. This is just in a broad statement. But if it shuts you out, human nature is you get frustrated, you don't want to do it no more, you slam it down, or you call your grandson or granddaughter to help you out, fix it, whatever. It's just human nature just to do that. My mom does the same thing. She'll have me come over and fix the TV, and it was really nothing even wrong with it. But it's just one of those things, if you just take the time to just figure out some of the easier parts of it, I think it would make it a lot more simple.
I had to get these little 30-year-olds, man, when they talk about it, it's really not that difficult. Here's what, please understand this, man, when you're talking about that, because, see, I actually have written a curriculum, too. I do programming as well.
Awesome,
and the curriculum is built towards guys our age and ladies our age who need to really go back and learn how this can be a benefit to us. And what I'm trying to get young folks, those 30-year-old somethings, to get, man, we had to put the brakes on at 40, 42 years old. Totally, slam the brakes on how we existed, how we had to do things, and this new creature developed in our world that without it, you're nothing.
I will say this, because I remember when I was a child, maybe about close to about 8 to 10, my father used to always tell me, obviously this was the late 90s, he would always tell me, computers is going to be your world. Yeah. Like, it's not going to be like kind of like it was mine, where we were still kind of teeter-tottering back and forth between modern technology and what it was, during that time in the 90s. This is going to be your world. And so as I watched him, as a child and how he, progressed and stuff like that, the problem is that technology changes so fast.
Yeah.
And I think that it becomes irritating to a demographic who
people
is just, I'm just being honest, who's trying to catch on to what just happened, and now something else is completely, happening, what's the new. But I always say too as well, with mobile applications, don't get confused with them. They all do the same thing. And I think that's where bridging of the gap happens. They all do the same, just about the same thing. I mean, you got Twitter. Okay, you can put maybe 140 characters, a video, and a picture. Facebook is the same thing, except for you can type a little bit longer than 140 characters. So they all do the same thing. It's just basically what your preference choice is that you want to use.
For instance, and then I'm going to bail up out of this conversation. This is interesting to me because, I started an internet radio game on accident.
Okay.
This social media internet radio game was not something that I said, let me go start me a business doing our community all the time. It morphed from having a nonprofit and saying, okay, this is a good tool to get my information out. I had an internet station. We didn't have these cameras doing Facebook Live and all. And like you say, I'm just getting caught up with knowing how to stream on location and doing this. And now everybody's got these cameras zooming in and doing these movies while I'm where am I now? So you're right. And learning this and keeping up to date on this, the proper mix now that I'm finding out is 30-something old guy who know a lot of stuff, and then if we can get those two together and learn off each other, now we got dynamite in the keg now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, this is really fascinating. I knew as soon as Adrian and I connected over lunch that HB is going to jump in on this one, and have something to say. And by the way, I just want you all to know, since you can't see me in Radio Land, that when Adrian said, this issue of the other demographic, I raised my hand because I'm the other demographic. And that's really true. But you know what? Here's the thing. We really play off each other's strengths. My strength is interdisciplinarity and theology, and you put a microphone in front of my face and off we go. In your case, man, I'm dependent on guys like you to know, and we're just so happy that you do. And so we're grateful, especially in the charter and the public school systems, that you're doing this kind of work and helping folks out that direction.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, from a range of, like I said, specifically helping them out with their social media networking, in regards to that, we live in a video age, too, as well. And so I do a lot of video production work for them, too, as well. We're giving them that extra advertisement a week. You'd be amazed what one video, a day in a life video, would do, for parents, just to give them a small inside scoop about what's going on at the school, maybe for the month or maybe every 2 months or so. It means a world of a difference. So, I do different things like that too as well, with the charter schools here in the city, as well as the radio program that I have too as well. We were talking about technology and how I kind of bridge the gap with that. I have a show on AM 1310. It's called Insight Sundays. Obviously on Sundays at 4:30 p.m. is when it airs. And as I air, I do a simulcast too as well, where I stream live on Facebook. So I'm hitting two different audiences. We have the older generation, who still just generally listens on air. And then we have the new generation who, when they get in their car, doesn't even turn on the radio. Either they have, satellite radio, or they're just pretty much just playing from their phone. Yeah, they're just Bluetooth and playing from their phone. So, now they have a visual representation of what's going on. So, in the time and day and age where we live at, I know you said you didn't pretty much think that you would want to do internet radio, but that was the best thing that you could have did at the time. It was where God was showing you where the new path line is. We live in a time now where people want to hear authenticity. They don't want to hear what somebody wrote down from the powers that be that make you say X, Y, and Z. They want to hear authenticity from you. They want to know that it's real. And most of the, I won't say all the time, but most of the time, people's videos that play on Facebook, they're not even quality video professional.
Right.
And people are getting famous, over this stuff. I mean, as long as it's entertaining,
Yep.
It'll get 1 million views, and you can run your own page and your own channel and be famous. Now, I mean, obviously there has to be a touch of professionalism depending upon, the area that you're in. But I mean, for the most part, people just want to hear authenticity from that person.
Yeah, they want straight talk for sure.
Yeah.
The issues I think that surround us in this regard absolutely connect to me personally. My mom, who's listening from Denver, Colorado, by the way, she said, "You know what? My computer went out the other day, and I picked up my iPad and just hit the link, and you guys were back on again." And I'm thinking, my mom, God bless her, 83 years old. This is a great stuff.
Before we go to break, Adrian, you mentioned something so powerful, though, because people are becoming famous, but I'm really sold on trying to make people producers, real producers, and being able to monetize that fame. Is where we still lack. All the stardom is cute and fine and nice, but how can you get an agency, a state agency, or a insurance company, or someone who wants to advertise because of your fame when you're not set up as a business and you don't have protocol in order to monetize on your fame, and so that's where I'm telling you, we're gonna break. Man, I love this guy, man.
This is great stuff. You're listening to RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site, Warp and Woof Radio. We will be right back. And we are back, RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site, Warp and Woof Radio. We come to you every Wednesday from 10 until noon, introducing Indianapolis to all different kinds of folks and interesting issues from around the area. And this week we are back with Adrian Mickens. Thanks so much, Adrian, for being here again. We wanted to come back to discuss something that you and I were talking about off air, which is the issue that really confronts all of us, whether you're 30 or 60, it doesn't really matter. And that is the fast-paced nature of technology, and what is it doing to our personal relationships?
As we discussed off air, I think that personally for me, obviously, because, I'm a direct, descendant in this generation who loves to use technology, I think that it's a phenomenal thing. However, I think that it's become a lost art of face-to-face, hand-to-hand handshakes, within doing business or,
right.
And just generally, just living life, for that matter. I think so much family now have settled for just being associated with family just on social media networks instead of actually taking the time to get together. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but I like to break things down and to the lowest form of what it really is. And we've really lost that personal touch
right
when it comes to learning one another in that way. And we feel like whatever we see caption wise about that person is that person. And it's even gotten to the point where as social media, I call it your own personal newspaper. So you write your own post about yourself. You write your own blog about yourself. You are your own newspaper journalist, writer, wherever it is, you are writing about yourself. And so that's what people is going to perceive you as, is what you write yourself as and what you photograph yourself as and what you record yourself as. That's what people is going to take you as. So we have a lot of people who maybe they're genuine, maybe they're not. Maybe it's authentic, maybe it's not. It's hard to tell, but that's just kind of the time that we live in, that it's easy to be phony than it is to be real now in this, technology age that we have and fast-paced stuff.
You really have brought up something that's really important, something I tell my audiences all the time. The question of social media is, what do you want to be known for? And if you are posting on X, Y, and Z, whatever the issues might be, then you're going to be known for those kinds of things. And for instance, take politics. I have very strong political views, but we don't talk about those. I don't write about those. I don't have those on my website. We don't deal with that with Comenius because what do I want to be known for? I want to be known for somebody who wants to unite Indianapolis, who wants to unite black and white churches, somebody who's interested in seeing the good that's going on all around us in a community. I think all of those things are really powerful. You hit on something just at the beginning of your comments about the personable nature, the handshake, the sitting down face-to-face kind of thing. How do you think we get back to that? I mean, is it just an issue of intentionality? Do we just call up somebody and say, hey, let's, do this thing? How does that work, at 30 for you?
I'm going to be honest. Sometimes when things go so forward, it's hard to go back.
Oh.
I don't think that it would ever, quote unquote, to go back to particularly the way that it is, the way that it used to be, where people used to be a lot more friendly and would want to meet and sit down and have coffee or have dinner and different things like that of that nature. Not to say that people don't do it now at all, but this new generation that's coming up within the 2000s, who were born, I was an 80s baby, but this new generation that's coming up who's about 17, 16 right now,
yep.
Their perception on communication is going to be completely different than it was from the 80s babies, or even most early 90s babies too as well. It's going to be completely different, and we're going to usher in a new age on the way that they communicate. It's going to be very interesting to see the way that they communicate. I mean, this generation that's coming up, basically anybody who was born from 2000 to now, you can be amazed. Like if you say, I'm going to take away your phone, they will. I mean, it's like it is their third hand. It's not like it's like that. It is their third hand, so it's just going to be interesting to see how this generation is going to react in the next few years and how they interact with one another. There's so many ways to even socialize, meaning dating, from dating apps. I mean, before they used to be like, I would never do something like that. So now it's normal.
Right.
It's a normal thing to pull out a dating app right now and find somebody and go on a date,
Yeah.
Before it would be spooky. Now it's not, So it's whatever generation particularly thinks of what is normal and what is not normal. And this new generation coming up in the 2000s, they believe that is normal.
So I got to ask you this question. You're talking about going out on a date, and doing the dating app. Okay, so I'm straight up honest when I ask you this question, but it's in my mind. I got to ask. So when you're on the date and you actually meet somebody, are you texting across the table to each other? I mean, how does that work?
I don't. And me and my wife, we never did not. But I will say this, though. When me and my wife actually met, she was a hairstylist, and I met her at a hair salon. I was developing a mobile app for this salon, and I was meeting with the owner. Once I left, we kind of eyed each other and different things like that, and I was very interested in her, curious enough, and I asked the owner about it and different things like that, blase, blase. I found my wife on Facebook. Now I could have went back to the salon, back to what we said, interaction face to face.
Right.
I could have went back to the salon and talked and different things like that, but we live in a fast-paced society now. So I said, well, let me just send her a nice message through inbox. You know, left her a nice message in inbox. She could have responded or didn't respond. You see what I mean? So, and I just thought about that as we were talking about it. Our basis of our relationship was through social media. You see what I mean? So, I mean, it wasn't that I went through an internet dating site, but that's the only way that I could reach out to her, at that time before I, got her number.
Right.
So, those things do play a difference in that way.
Is there any way, you were talking about, young people that are born in 2000 and coming this direction. Can you forecast for us anything that you see just over the horizon? What are the new things that they're going to be interacting with? You mentioned dating apps, for instance, but what do you think the future holds in this regard for how the communication is going to go?
Well, I will say this: over the course of time, since the computer age, we all are children of each generation of what they created. We have to create something better than what the past generation did. So if we want to start kind of where the Steve Jobs, Bill Gates era was in the 1970s, late 60s, 1970s, they were the children of the people who created the IBM machines and different things like that. You see what I mean? And at that time, well, it wasn't seen as a bad word, but they had hacker groups, at the time, and they would basically create code. That's what it was. They were creating code in fascinating ways to see things on monitors and different things like that. But it took for them, specifically Steve Jobs, he had the artistic vision behind it on what we use today, literally. But it took for them to create something that we could use today as a everyday life tool. Now we live in a time where they created the machinery and the software, because it was two different ones. Apple is very, strong on hardware, and Microsoft is very strong on software. A lot of people don't know, but they actually worked together for many years, and even now too as well. And actually, Bill Gates actually saved Apple at one time too as well, when they tanked, when they let Steve Jobs go. But that's another story another day. But in this time, we are now living in a software creativity generation where anybody can create anything, and the major corporations and companies are looking for the next big creator of software. That's all that's being done right now, is just the creation of software. With mobile applications that I do, it's nothing but creating software that people can download and have on their phone, and all I'm doing is changing content of information, but it's nothing but software that's being used. Now the trick is, or the key is, you have to find a market that's relevant, to what you're doing. Everybody has when I meet different clients that sit me down and tell me their ideas for their app, I have to let them know, hey, it's already invented, or hey, you actually have a new idea. Because sometimes they may come up with something that's already invented. So
yeah, this is fascinating stuff. When you and I were relating to each other on Facebook the other day, and I was sending you messages, and when I put out our promotion last evening and then this morning, and you wrote back that I wasn't quite getting your company right, and I was spacing on a word. It was really fascinating to me how when you're looking at a screen, you can just space content, just kind of breeze right over it with your eyes, and you're not seeing the whole thing. So in your case, for instance, we were talking about soul hits, and it used to be entertainment, now it's communication. So let's bring that forward and tell us a little bit about Soul Hits Communication, what you do, what the emphasis is in your company for Indianapolis.
Well, Soul Hits Communications as a whole, it's much like I stated before. Our goal and our mission is to broadcast and serve the community through media. And there's lots of different forms of that. Started a company of entertainment. I produce a lot of music, which I still do now. But now it's changed. A lot of them now have turned into scores, because I do a lot of documentary films and stuff like that too as well. So that's pretty much just the core nature. It's social media, networking, video production, and just broadcasting.
Talk about broadcasting for a minute. You had mentioned your show on Sunday afternoon, evening at 4:30 at 1310 The Light. Tell us, what are some of the kinds of things that you discuss there, maybe some of the guests that you've had in?
Well, the reason why I created Insight Sundays was obviously definitely to get information out to the community, but the core vocal point was because there were a lot of great, good, talented, excellent gospel artists in the city that was not getting any kind of airplay, recognition, anything at all. They were completely overshadowed by what we call, quote unquote, secular rap or secular R&B or whatever it is, anybody wants to title it. But they didn't get any love at all, just any love at all. So I wanted to make it a point to get them out there, at least let people know, even if your song doesn't get, radio airplay, at least people will know who you are. You got a good package put together and different things like that. Maybe you get an opportunity to perform at somebody's church or something like that. A lot of churches bring in national artists, so maybe get an opportunity to open up for them, So I wanted to really create that. Also, too, as well, really wanted to create a platform for businesses in the city, again, who would get overshadowed by bigger advertisers or marketers on air who generally their name would never get known or said or anything of that nature. So I just really wanted to help out the community a lot and get other people's names out there. And, I put myself on the line, meaning specifically running the program independently to make sure that, people would be able to do that and not be controlled as they would be on there.
This is really fascinating discussion, because what we're talking about here, what you just described to us, is pretty much the tagline for the show, that you're doing good and you're really focused on that for other folks. But something else I'm hearing there, and maybe you could respond to this, is I get the sense from you as I hear you talk that this is very much of a grassroots kind of movement. I mean, this you're an individual, you've created your own company. I've heard the word independent a couple of times. Talk to us about the ethos of this, and why is it that you've approached life and your company this way?
Well, in my family, specifically, with my mother and my father for that matter, but definitely my mom, we believe in entrepreneurship a lot. My mom has a running salon even till today, 17 years. It's called Buttons and Bows Hair Salon on 62nd and Allisonville Road.
There's some love to Mom right there.
There we go. But in turn with that, I've just always been that way. I've always been that person who would want to create something from scratch and build it from the ground up. You have a different appreciation for it, rather than just being handed to you. And I understand that. Not everybody understands that. They want to get the easy ticket up and figure out that it wasn't what you thought it was going to be, or you're trapped in something that you don't like. And that's a big problem too as well. I never want to be trapped into something that I don't like. I always want to do something that I love. If I want to get up every day and go somewhere, I want to get up every day and go somewhere of a place that I love. But the key thing that I always tell everybody who's ever asked me, years ago, not that far back, but about 2011, is when I went on ahead and just, when I call it pull the plug, is from kind of working the 9-to-5 job. And I had a conversation with God one night or day, whichever one it was, and I let him know, I said, if you will allow me to serve the people and what I love to do, I will give you my absolute 210% of my all if you allow me to do that. So if I don't serve the people, if I don't help the people, I don't have a career. So that's the oxymoron behind that.
That, to have you say that is really the focal point of what a Christian ought to be about. You're a creator, somebody who's an entrepreneur, somebody that does things that's independent, but it's not as if you're just to yourself. You're doing this for others. That's your real calling. I
mean, and again, it sounds, for me, it sounds easy, but when I actually got out and, God allowed me to do what I asked him for, and to see how much people did not know about stuff that comes so natural to me, it made me appreciate what I do and understand that, this is my calling, which is media, communications and entertainment, in that fashion. This is my calling, things that come natural to me. I can record a video, cut it, edit it, and have it done in a day. It could take somebody else the same thing, same video, a month to do, I think as I do. I create as I do. I paint portraits as I do, and everybody doesn't have that gift. But I don't have gifts that everybody else has to as well.
There it is.
Like my wife now, she's a hairstylist, and I couldn't even imagine doing somebody's hair. I think that is one of the most hardest jobs, especially if you cut somebody's hair off, you can't put it back on, or if you dye their hair, you see what I mean? But I don't have that passion, and she has that passion. Everybody has different passions, of that. But, for me as a creator, when I think of something, I put it out in the atmosphere, whether it's applications or networking or video production or music. I think about it, I draw it in my brain, and I do it.
I have to say that as we're having this conversation, which, I mentioned to you, I sent you all these questions, maybe we'd get to, maybe we wouldn't, but we're not obviously dealing with all those questions. One of the things that strikes me about this conversation is the issue of attribution. So when you're producing these things, and you put it out there, and then people just use it, view it, maybe morph it into something else, how do you deal with that now in a culture that just shows what everybody else is doing without giving any attribution or copyright issues or any of that kind of stuff. How do you navigate all of that?
Well, it depends on which companies it is. Most companies, like, some of the larger ones that I deal with, there's a lot of legal stuff that goes in with it, a lot of video work and stuff that I do for them. And then we have our small business clients too as well, where, it's not as extraneous, as it is working with the larger corporations and companies and stuff. I always sit them down. I try to see first what their initial vision is, and then I just pretty much take it from there. Once they review the content, then we go over it and different things like that. But I always let them know whatever information that you're giving me. Again, there is some legalities behind that, with third-party information and different things like that. We definitely fine-tooth comb a lot of different stuff before anything is ever publicated. Specifically with small businesses, we're dealing with third-party affiliated stuff. It's really easy to get a client who wants to build an application and steals like 10 different pictures off of Google and want to put them on there as placeholders, and you can't quite do that, because it's somebody else's information. So, I have to tell them, you have to do this, that, or the other. A lot of people think that websites and mobile applications are the same. They are. It's just a great resource tool for information. However, a mobile application is literally putting a product in a virtual store. And you have a couple different stores, but obviously the two major stores that everybody knows about is Google Play and the App Store for the iPhone or the iPad. And there are rules and regulations to these stores that I have to abide by as a developer, and they're very strict about, especially Apple. They want nothing but top quality service. Back to what I was telling you about with Steve Jobs. They really, 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 I think he died in 2011 too, really hold on to his core mission, and that is professionalism through artisticness, and so your applications have to be very artistic to be a part of the Apple family.
The issue of artistry and creativity coming together within the realm of technology, one of the things that we know that is generally true across the board in God's creation is that truth, goodness, and beauty work together, those three things working together. And what you're suggesting here is that there's a sense in which technology is beautiful, that it's doing good work and can produce truth, or can at least be a venue for speaking truth. But the thing that stuck out to me in your comments there have to do with beauty, that you view what you're doing, or some of what you're doing at least, as beautiful. Can you kind of expand on that for us?
Well, I put to you like this. If you went to the store to buy a outfit, you would want the best looking outfit that you could purchase. And it's the same thing with cell phones and mobile applications. If somebody downloads your application and they open it up, it's hard to navigate. It's either too big or it just doesn't make sense. It may make sense to you as a developer, but it doesn't make sense to the audience. And it takes time. Like when I very first started creating mobile apps, which was back in like 2013, was when I really started doing them for like charter schools and stuff like that. It took maybe about 2 years to about maybe 2015 until we had a solid thing that we knew that everybody wanted to use in this application. We had an initial thought when I sat down at the table, with the administration. That was our thought, and I could create that. But that's not how people wanted to use it. There's different dimensions to it. We had to have a dimension for staff. We had to have a dimension for students. We had to have a dimension for parents. And we had to have a dimension for, I think I said students already, or staff, I should say, staff. We had to have a dimension for everybody in the application, login, passwords, hidden this, hidden that, hidden page this, And it took time, to develop, in that way. It did.
The beauty of what you're doing is it really is something that stands out. I'd never thought in thinking about this conversation today that we would ever be talking about aesthetics or something that's beautiful, but that's really huge. I want to move to some projects that you might be doing in the community, and I want to give some love out to those folks. Who are you interviewing? What subjects are being discussed, perhaps? And then maybe say something about the U-Turn conference that's coming up.
Oh, okay. Say that last part.
Yeah, the conference that you're promoting on social media, the issues that.
Oh, I see what you mean. I'm gonna be honest. I am not directly promoting that. That was just a shared tag information on that. But I do know that it's going to be I believe it's a gospel event.
Okay.
So I would suggest people to go to that.
Yeah.
You'll definitely see a lot of great performances. I know a couple acts on that, but I am not a direct promoter of that. So
okay.
Sorry about that. That's why I was confused when you had mentioned that. But I am not the direct promoter of that event.
Yeah, not a problem at all. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about the issue of communication, and obviously this has been the whole second hour of our show, what is it about communication that makes you so passionate? Is it that you want to form relationships with people, that you want to create something good for somebody else to use? How would you say your own mission is? What would you say your mission is?
Short term, long term, I'm always a long term visionary person. Mm-hmm. Long term, I see myself having a large corporation within communications.
Nice.
With all departments from video to social networking to web development, coding avenues, and different things of such of that nature. Everything that has to do with communications, pretty much. But what I see and what I like to do in a short-term basis, me personally, I'm a creator, like I said before. And I take pride in my work where we're talking about designing and creativity and beauty and such of that nature. I love to, like I said before, meet with people to get an understanding of what they see so they can get an understanding of my vision, and we combine them together because I'm going to be honest, I'm very sensitive about not necessarily my work, but the effort and time that I put in to my work.
Sure.
And that's the difference of that. Now in business, you learn definitely over time. It doesn't matter if a client is not happy with a product, they're just not happy with a product. And I'm completely understanding of that. But sometimes you deal with people who are just flat out nasty and rude, and when you don't respect the time, not the job, but the time that I put into it, that's when I have any issue.
Yeah. The issue of appreciating people and gratitude for what they've done. This is a big deal. We don't really think much about saying thank you, but the issue of manners actually raises the specter here for us that we ought to be people of gratitude.
Yeah. And, even from small businesses where I work with people like that, who could be unappreciative of time. Again, not necessarily the work, because everybody doesn't like everything, but time. I even deal with larger corporations, and they necessarily don't respect the time, but they just don't respect you and your work, and I have no problems with walking away. Again, I would rather walk in somewhere every day that I enjoy and to do business with somebody who I enjoy doing business with and who respects my work, who understands my work, who understands me and what I do, than to just be stuck somewhere or just keep making wrong deals with people just for the money. Everything isn't always about the money. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Let me ask one more question. We've got just a few minutes left here about the church, specifically in the Christian community. How do you think your application, the vocation that you're invested in, the passion you have for communication, how do you think that that's beneficial for the church? How do you think that helps the church into the future?
Well, I do create mobile applications for churches too as well. I have a few of them on the market right now. The benefit of having networking or mobile applications for churches is communications with the community but even more so staying more communicated with your members.
Okay.
You know, a lot of the times there's so many churches, depending upon which size of church you go to, there's so many different events that goes on in a month or sometimes in a week if it's a larger church. And, you know, it keeps you informed about what's going on, how it's going on.
Yes.
Gives people an opportunity to look forward to stuff, you know. And then one of the most best things of all is that you get an opportunity to put private messages on there, meaning specifically some pastors do like morning calls on the applications.
Okay.
They send out to give a nice little scripture word and different things like that. And that kind of bridges the gap with the older audience and the younger audience too as well, to be able to do that. Some of them just stream live on Facebook and run it through their mobile application like that too as well. So there's a variety of ways that you can do stuff. But the biggest thing of all, again, is that you can stay communicated with your church members and the community, with your church and what's going on. I call mobile applications. Everybody thinks I'm crazy right now, but in the next 2 to 3 years, like I always know, it won't be that way. But mobile applications are the new business cards. You know, most of the time when somebody hands somebody a business card, usually they tuck it away in their pocket, but sometimes it grows legs and it goes in outer space. Now with mobile applications, you know, people can stay connected and you can remind them when you have things going on about you and your company and your brand and different things like that through the push notification alert system. That's a provided service that I provide within my company. That you can stay connected. Much like this show today, we could have sent out an alert to all of the Radio Next listeners saying, hey, we're getting ready to get on air here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've just got a minute left, so what would be one thing or two things that you'd like to leave our audience with here today?
I would say, number one, please do not be afraid of technology.
There you go.
It is your friend. It really is. Even though it doesn't, you know, it's a changing time in the way that we communicate with one another. We all know that. We can see that. You know, I wish that it could go back to the way that it was, but like I said, we don't know with this new generation coming up and how they're going to respond when I'm 60 and they're 30. You know,
right? Yeah, it's
going to be interesting to see. You know, we just had a daughter in January. It's going to be very interesting to see how her generation.
Right.
And our son, who's 6, is going to, you know, react to this new day and age. So, yep. So don't be afraid of technology, and just be blessed.
One more time, your company's name is?
Once again, my company name is Soul Hits with a Z. Once again, that's Hits with a Z. Communications LLC. We provide all media services, video production. We also provide music recordings. We also provide live broadcasting too as well of any of your events recorded, or if you just want it to be live, as I just stated before. Also, you can catch me on AM 1310 The Light every Sunday at 4:30, and the show again is called Insight Sundays. Find me on Facebook at Insight Sundays, Instagram at Insight Sundays, Snapchat at Insight Sundays, and Twitter at Insight Sundays. Doesn't matter, whichever one you prefer as your method of communications.
There you go. It's been a joy to have you here today, Adrian. Thanks so much for spending some time with us and for bringing your lovely bride along with you. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Next week, we are going to have the group Coffee in. That's with one E at the end. We're going to be talking with them about the good work that they do in the community, raising funds as well as raising awareness for nonprofits and other sectors of the Indianapolis community. You've been listening to RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site. This is Warp and Woof Radio. We come to you every Wednesday from 10 until noon. And until next week, have a blessed week.